Hello, my name is Carlo Tapia. I'm the Product Marketing Manager at eFolder and your host for today's webinar. Welcome to the eFolder Expert Series. This webinar series brings together experts from eFolder staff and partner community for deep dive discussions on key service and technical topics. Today's presentation is 3 ways to block Dropbox in the workplace. And we're joined by Ryan Griswold, Security Administrator at eFolder.
Hello.
Hey there, Ryan. Let's first cover a few housekeeping items before going into today's agenda. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who registered for the event. With over 210 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it on your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Today's webinar follows a logical flow. After introducing our expert guest, we'll explore the Dropbox problem, why so many SMBs are adopting or at least experiencing consumer-grade Dropbox in the workplace, and the consequences of this adoption. We'll then review 3 ways to block Dropbox in the workplace. And following this overview, Ryan will provide a short demonstration of blocking Dropbox using a next-generation firewall. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit questions as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. So now let me introduce Ryan. Ryan Griswold is a member of the security and compliance team at eFolder. He has over 7 years of cybersecurity experience, including over 6 years as an ethical hacker with the Department of Defense. He started out working for managed service providers, which gave him the groundwork to really understand customers' needs and how to effectively communicate with them. Meanwhile, working for companies like Raytheon Intelligence and Information Systems and NetApp have given him the presentation skills needed to be skillful at presenting both high-level and low-level material to a wide range of audiences. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us, and welcome.
Thank you.
So let's provide just a little bit of context into why we're conducting today's webinar. The reality is that there are a few trends that are forcing the adoption or causing the adoption of Dropbox. And those 2 trends are really mobility and the BYOD movement. Some of the statistics on the screen really speak to the remote nature of a lot of workplaces today. So you have employees that are working with remote customers, or employees that are working with remote coworkers. So maybe some people are out in the field or at different locations or offices. And then even suppliers or vendors are also remote. And all of these kind of contribute or point to the fact that the world is now more mobile than it ever has been, and people are using more devices than they ever have been. So everything from somebody's laptop to their desktop to their mobile phones to their tablets, all of these are devices that have sort of pushed these trends forward. So solutions like Dropbox really come into play, for 4 reasons, and the 3 primary reasons is that Dropbox is easy to use. So hopefully everybody on the call today has an understanding of Dropbox, but basically it's a file sync service that allows you to sync content between different devices. You drop it into a folder on your laptop or desktop, let's say, and you can be out in the field and access it from your mobile phone or from your tablet or from another workstation or device. Dropbox is free, so really when we talk about the Dropbox problem, what we're talking about is consumer-grade Dropbox, the Dropbox service that was really designed for personal use or for sharing non-sensitive data. And the consumer-grade version is free to most users. That's why Dropbox has been able to achieve such high rates of adoption. I think the last statistic that we saw on Dropbox was that they had over 300 million users. And so the service is really one of the fastest growing in the world. And then it's what people use at home. So I mentioned personal use. It may not necessarily be at home. It may just be that these people have adopted it out of convenience. And more we're seeing people bringing this into the workplace or the work environment. They may have documents that they're working on their work computer, and rather than have to log home their computer or their desktop or have to VPN in or FTP in, what they're doing is they're just dropping these documents into their Dropbox folder and then going home and working on different devices. So those are three, really primary reasons why we're seeing such high rates of adoption for Dropbox. And the fourth reason really that we point to is that people, employees, they don't really know any better. A lot of people think, well, I've used it for my personal use. I've used it to share my pictures with my family. I've used it to work on certain documents. And so it must be okay to use. This is something that it makes me more productive. And they don't really realize all of the security and administrative risks that they take by adopting a consumer-grade solution. And the business owners really aren't privy to how their files are being used and accessed and shared, and who those files are being propagated to. So this is why, we position it as there's really the end user perspective. Dropbox, it's easy, it's free, it's what I use at home. And from a more business owner perspective, it's not appropriate to have a solution like Dropbox, a consumer-grade solution, in the workplace. So I'm getting a few messages that I'm breaking up, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my handset. Okay. Ryan, is this any clearer?
It is a little bit better. I think it might just be the phone server, so hopefully.
Okay. All right, no problem. Then I'll try and go off my handset, and then if it keeps breaking up, just let me know, and I'll have to dial in using my cell phone. So yeah, so these are the four real reasons why we see Dropbox use occurring in the workplace. So just an example of sort of the risks that businesses assume by having consumer-grade Dropbox or a free version of Dropbox or the lower tiers of Dropbox in a work environment. So here what we have is, it's really about visibility and sharing and how much you control, how much control you have over the data and the files that the business depends on. So in this case, we have this document, non-secure document. We've labeled it, and it says confidential information attached. Please don't share with anyone. And let's just assume that this is a worker. He's dropped it into his Dropbox folder. He doesn't want to send this via attachment because it's just easier to do it, using Dropbox. So he creates this public link. It even says there, anyone with the link can see it. So anybody has access to this. And a common use case might be this is a tax document, or it's an invoice, or it's something proprietary. And this employee has gone off. They've dropped it into their Dropbox folder. They've now created a public link that anybody can access. And they're going to go ahead and share it with John. So they go off to share it, with John, and then John goes off, or anybody else goes off, and they forward it on to somebody, to whoever they want. Check this out, everyone. Right? So in the case of consumer-grade Dropbox, there's very limited security controls. You can take a public link, drop it into an email, forward it on to anybody else. There's no expiration dates. There's no types of credentialed access available. There's no visibility into who's accessing that file, who's editing that file, who's modifying that file. So really, it puts the business at a serious amount of risk when you have employees who can just take documents, create public links, and share them with whoever they'd like. So in this case, check this out, everyone, and he's sending it to me and Ted and some other members of our marketing department, this confidential information. So what we see then is that there's risks associated with Dropbox and really any form of non-secure sharing or non-secure syncing. These range from data theft. So if you're carrying around, your employee is using their personal Dropbox on their phone and they lose their cell phone, and somebody off the street goes up and they just pick up the phone. So pretty serious data theft because there's no administrative controls with that version of Dropbox, and the administrator can't go on and throw a remote brick at it and say, I want to wipe that cell phone that was dropped by X employee. So serious risk of data theft. Data loss. you fire John, let's say, and John was an employee you fired last week, and he still has the laptop, and he still has Dropbox, and he has all of the company's information in his personal Dropbox. Again, you can't perform a remote wipe. You can't block out John or prevent him from syncing more information. So data loss is a serious problem for the business as well. John could take all of the sensitive documents, pull them off the file server, drop them into the Dropbox, and so be it. Corrupted data. There are notes or events where Dropbox has actually corrupted data. Lawsuits as well. So if you're talking about highly regulated industries, the medical industry to name one, we actually had a partner who had clients that were using Dropbox. Dropbox is not and the client was a medical office, and Dropbox is not HIPAA compliant. And we had doctors at this medical office. At this medical office who were basically recording their patients, taking videos of their patients, putting in their Dropbox. So I'm still getting a note that my phone is my voice is breaking up. I'm going to go ahead and dial in over my cell phone. I apologize to everybody who's on the line, but I hope this helps with the sound quality. So. Okay, I'll dial right back in here. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds a lot better this time.
All right. If we're not clear by this point, I should probably just give up. Just kidding. Thanks everyone for being patient and waiting through that. We seem to be having some problems with our phone system, so hopefully this cleared it up. Okay, so just chugging along with some of the risks of consumer-grade Dropbox and some of these consumer-grade Dropbox compliance violations. I was mentioning how we actually had a partner who had a client who was operating in the medical field. They were a medical office, and doctors were actually filming the patients and dropping these recordings or these videos into their personal Dropbox. Now, if any of those doctors would have actually lost their cell phone or lost their laptop with those patient files, that could have been a pretty serious HIPAA violation. And for any of you who are familiar with HIPAA, a violation like that can cost anywhere from $100,000 to millions of dollars, not including all the legal fees and the reputation costs associated with that. So those types of compliance violations can really put a small or medium-sized business out of risk. And unfortunately, small and medium-sized businesses are that's the market that's sort of taking advantage of these free or consumer-grade services. So more than likely, you will have clients who are using Dropbox, and that's why we're having that's why we're conducting this webinar today. Loss of accountability, loss of file access. So again, you have employees who are losing files, or they're leaking files because they're dropping it into their personal Dropbox. They're not moving it back to the file server, not sending it, not storing it on their work devices or in their working folders. And so loss of accountability and loss of file access. People just kind of creating data silos by having files contained in their personal Dropbox folder. Ryan, would you add anything else to sort of the risks of a solution like Dropbox?
No, I think that fairly well covers it. I mean, when we don't have any control over what they put in there, who they share it with, and then, like you said, device control. That all those things can happen. So I think that pretty well covers it.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, right? It's control, it's visibility, and it's control. At the end of the day, when your client loses a piece of information, when an employee goes rogue and takes their files with them, or when they're syncing these files to their personal Dropbox folder, at the end of the day, as their IT consultant or as their IT professional, it's the unfortunate reality is that even the mistakes they make, oftentimes, you as a partner are held accountable. And so you know, they're depending on you to basically keep them up and running, keep them productive. And if they're introducing consumer-grade solutions and something goes wrong, oftentimes you will be on the hook to basically help them, come out of this hole that they've dug themselves. And so if you can eliminate these risks, eliminate the use of consumer-grade Dropbox or any consumer-grade service, really, it'll position you as an IT professional, as an expert, and also somebody who they can trust their business with. So at this time, now that we've provided some context into some of the risks associated with Dropbox, why we're seeing the adoption of consumer-grade Dropbox, I'd like to switch over to Ryan, who can actually, provide an overview of the different ways you can block Dropbox for your clients. So Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and give you keyboard and mouse control.
Okay.
Okay. And you should have control now.
Okay. So, as this says, this is just going over 3 ways to block Dropbox in the workplace. Granted, there are various and sundry ways to do it, but these 3 are the main kind of go-to ways. We want to be able to point out that a varied approach is the best approach. We don't really want to pick just one way and assume that that'll work. Just like anything else, we want to have a multifaceted approach so that the chances of somebody getting around your controls, which is really what we want to look for, will be reduced or eliminated. So let's do this. All right. So first one is security software. Would kind of be considered antivirus software or malware, anti-malware software. A lot of the commercial grade versions of these softwares do block potentially unwanted applications. We're kind of at the mercy on a lot of these. We're kind of at the mercy of what they consider to be PUA or potentially unwanted application. And there are other names for that as well. We're just going to stick with potentially unwanted application instead of potentially unwanted program. The biggest problem with this would be that the user would see something like this pop up and they could allow it. If there were an enterprise server or enterprise manager controlling these, then there might be a policy that would come through and wipe it and stop it from occurring again. But bottom line here is that we would want, if we were using this as a solution, we want to make sure that the solution we're picking would have the ability to define what a PUA is. In other words, we want Dropbox.exe to be considered a PUA. The solution that eFolder uses, we don't actually have that ability yet. We just don't. But there are other ones. I don't know if McAfee is among them or even Avast. But so that's just one way. But again, there are ways around it. Renaming the .exe file, for instance, to something else. They should go off of the signatures on the exe file, but some don't. So this is one way to do it. But again, this is kind of what I would consider to be a soft solution. As you can see, these 2 here, can we report it? We can add it to the exclusion list. We can add it. We can allow it. We can do whatever we want. And then if they somehow get around the controls here, then they can make it through your firewall or whatever if you haven't used any other methods to try to block Dropbox. So here, this is this is from Sophos, which is cloud. Well, actually, I have 2 different ways, but this is from the cloud version of Sophos antivirus, and this just shows that you can get in and specify to block other executables and Windows exes, but that would block them all. You can't specifically say, I want to block Dropbox.exe. This may or may not be a good practice for customers, partners, only because if we block everything absolutely, then that could cause an issue, because perhaps you have, people in your organization that need certain executables. Maybe it would be a good solution. It just depends. But again, this is sort of a blanket, let's just block everything kind of an approach. And really, we want to get granular. We want to make sure that we can I have trouble with this word, so I apologize. Granularly control the way in which we block things. So this is one way via antivirus software. This would be more considered like a security suite type of software. This is another way that we could do it. Basically, we would say, Dropbox.com would be blocked, or we could create a bunch of different websites within a specific tag, and then when a website that's hit with that tag, we do something with it, like block it. That's kind of a net nanny type of approach. Again, there are ways around it, but it is part of an effective solution. And for the most part, it's going to deter your people. You tell them, hey, don't do this, and then you put this in place that just sort of reinforces the fact that, hey, we told you don't do it, so we're blocking this action. All right, so the next one will be manual firewall configuration. This is generally not a good practice. I mean, it works, yes, but if Dropbox, for instance, were to change their IP ranges, like right now, these ranges, this is what's current. But if they expand, they get bigger, which they may, then they could add more ranges. Or if they decided to change ranges for some reason, they could do that as well. You'd have to go into your firewall and add those ranges in, take the other ranges out, or whatever. You just have to goof around with it. And you may not know, the problem is that you may not know in the interim, while your people are now, who you have previously blocked via firewall configuration, are now using Dropbox again, or any other application that you blocked with this method. Blocking IPs, and we can't block ports. And just kind of as an aside, we can't block ports because Dropbox uses port 80 and port 443. So obviously we can't block those ports. Well, we could, but that would be probably not a great option. This is just an example of a firewall configuration from Cisco. So you would just put in the IP address range, and that would effectively block it. But again, we're blocking for the moment, and we may or may not know when Dropbox changes or adds IPs. So you're kind of hoping that you can do this. If this is your only option, then it is effective for right now. But just be aware that these things change frequently. So let's see here. All right. So this is OpenDNS. So another way would be with configuring your DNS. This has its ups and downs. Some people swear by it. There are ways to get around it, but if you use a multifaceted approach, this could certainly be a great way to help dissuade the persistent user. For instance, you could go into OpenDNS, create an account for your business, and not only can you create high, moderate, or low, but you could be custom and say, hey, I want to block these types of websites, and not only that, but I can block, as in this here it shows manage individual domains. I can say, Dropbox.com, add that domain, so it'll always block that, and YouTube or whatever. And as long as the computers in your, we'll say you have a domain, hopefully, as long as the computers in your domain, or at least under the purview of your DHCP server, are getting this DHCP, or excuse me, this DNS address, this is where it goes to do its name resolution. Once it sees that it's trying to resolve that name, it'll block that IP or that name. The problem with this is if you don't have a domain and you don't have group policy in place, which we'll go over that here in just a minute, but if you don't have those things in place, the halfway savvy user can go in and change their DNS configuration and just go to 8.8.8.8, for instance, which is Google's DNS, and then they can do whatever they want. So again, this is part of a multifaceted approach. If you have a way to keep them from changing their DNS settings, this would be effective. But again, there are other things that I'll go over here in just a second that kind of add to this. Okay, here we go. Before I talk about this, let me go back a couple of slides here. I just want to point out that we can control the DNS configuration or DHCP configuration via group policy if you have an Active Directory domain, which hopefully most sites will have Active Directory and therefore group policy. You can control a lot of things that way, whether it be from blocking the user to be able to change their IP settings so that they can't change their IP address, their DNS, or anything like that, to actually doing software blockage as well. You can block certain types of software via group policy, and you can control how often group policy gets applied. But the main thing about group policy is once it gets pushed, as long as you have the security in place to keep people from changing the things in the registry as well, then it's pretty well down. And it becomes frustrating for the user who's trying to get around your controls. Next-gen firewalls, they're made by all kinds of folks. Barracuda, Cisco, Firewall, SonicWall, Palo Alto. There's a ton of them out there. Here at eFolder, you know, we have a Palo Alto that we use, which is what I'll be doing the live demo on. And this is just a screenshot of what it would look like, you know, if you had a full whack of policies here that you would use to kind of zone in on the way things are. This is sort of like a Cisco for you old school guys out there. It's kind of top down. So when the traffic comes in, it starts playing Plinko with these rules. You know, if it applies, it blocks it, and then it doesn't move on. If it doesn't apply, it moves on to the next rule, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. Yeah.
So Ryan, before we actually go into the demo, because I think that's what you were going to do next, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I believe that's next.
Let's see if we have. Let's see what questions we have in the queue.
Okay.
Okay, a few questions about the recording. We will be sending a recording to everybody who did attend, so no problem with that. Is this the same? There is a question from Brian. Is this the same issue with others like Box, OneDrive, and Google Drive? So I'll address this really quickly. I think what Brian's getting at is, you know, we mentioned a lot of the risk of having, you know, Dropbox sort of in the workplace. And Brian, what I would say is that here at eFolder, the way that we sort of split the market is that you have consumer-grade solutions and you have business-grade solutions, and that goes for generally any software product.
so when we talk about sort of OneDrive and Google Drive, we definitely consider those consumer-grade solutions because you're lacking a lot of the visibility and control that a business really needs. So it's really convenient for personal use, but are you going to be able to perform a remote wipe on the fly? Are you going to be able to set expiration dates? Are you going to be able to enforce credentials? Most likely not on most of these services. With that said, most companies today, OneDrive, Google Drive, and Dropbox, actually probably not Google Drive, but OneDrive and Dropbox definitely offered sort of a tiered service where you can unlock more security features as you start paying more. So, rather than have the free version of Dropbox, you may be paying $15 or $20 a user for Dropbox for Business. In our opinion, Dropbox is still an inferior product, even with those higher tiered offerings. We've done the comparisons between all of these different services, and Dropbox for Business is still really what we consider a consumer-grade solution. But that's not the way that many of your clients, especially the small, medium-sized businesses, will sort of perceive Dropbox for Business. But we'll go into this a little bit more and sort of how you can start having these conversations with your clients. And so that sort of answers Michael's question, are we actually going to discuss eFolder and how it can help address the Dropbox issue? So we will be going into that right after this demo, Michael. One last note, Brian, you did mention Box and sort of the solutions that you wanted to discuss. Box is a solution that we consider a business-grade solution. So whereas OneDrive and Google Drive and Dropbox are consumer-grade solutions, Box we do consider a business-grade solution. However, for the small and medium-sized businesses, most small and medium-sized businesses today are not adopting Box. And it's simply a price discussion. Box basically starts at around $20 per user at its most basic level. And then as you start to scale up, you could be spending $35 to $40 per user. So it's not something that has been widely adopted, or at least that we see being widely adopted by small and medium-sized businesses. And there are business-grade solutions, such as Anchor, a product that's provided by eFolder, which are much more affordable, which you can deliver, you can manage, and have very comparable features to a business-grade solution like Box. So we'll go into that a bit more, but Ryan, I'll let you take the stage again and give us the demo of how to block Dropbox using a next-generation firewall here.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
All right. So I believe we should all be seeing a clean Palo Alto here.
Yep, we got it on the screen. All
right, so I want to point out a couple of things here. This is really just a clean environment. This is not how your production environment would look, but this is just for ease of presentation so that we can all kind of see how it is. So this right here would be where we would add our policies in for through traffic, and it's very, how should I say, very scalable. It's very versatile. So I'll just show you here. So we're going to add a policy here. So we're going to call it, we're going to be very creative. Oops, if I can type. So we're just going to be real creative here and call it that. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to block Dropbox. And bear in mind, this is a next generation firewall, so it kind of thinks, and the way that it sort of thinks is that it interacts with other Palo Alto firewalls that other people have purchased, and they all talk to each other, and they get signatures of things like Dropbox.exe, and they just share them so that they all kind of understand what we're talking about when we say, block a certain thing. It'll make sense. what I just said will make a little more sense here in a second. So, so in this case, we want to block. We're going to say we want to block all Dropbox from anywhere. So we just say any source address is any. So anything coming in through the firewall, we're going to block Dropbox. We aren't going to specify any users, or what an HIP profile is basically if we integrate Active Directory with the Palo Alto, then we could have basically roaming profiles, and it wouldn't depend on what computer that they're on. We could allow, for instance, one specific person, if we wanted Carlo to be able to use Dropbox no matter where he was, we could do that here, but we're not going to. We're going to say any user we want this to apply to, the destination. In this case, we are going to select and do Untrust, which in our case, and you can mess with the zones as you see fit on your own firewall. In our case, the Untrust is just going outbound. Anything going outbound, we're going to say we want it to be blocked, destination address, any. So that way, again, if Dropbox decides to change their addresses or whatever, wouldn't matter. We've got all the spectrum covered. Now here's where the real meat of the rule is here. We're going to add, and by the way, you don't have to specify this. These come with this rule set, and these applications, while you can define them, come with a Palo Alto with a lot of others. So we're going to pick Dropbox. So it knows what Dropbox is. It knows its signature and code, etc. So it's going to know what to look for. And here's another interesting piece. We can say application default, which would be port 80 and 443, and whatever defaults that it uses, that's what we're going to block. In this case, we're going to say any. So that way, if somebody were to somehow alter the code or do something tricky to get around all the controls that you have in place, it wouldn't matter. It's going to know it's Dropbox, and it doesn't really care what service it's using. We're just going to say any. And the same with URL category. We'll say any. Now, it stands to add here that what we could do, if we chose, we could go in here and we can add online storage and backup. So this is kind of tricky because maybe there is some online storage and backup you'd want to use, and no eFolder, what we call sync tool or anchor is not included in this particular category. So you'd be safe to use that if you wanted to use anchor. But you could do that. That way it blocks all of these. But again, maybe some of them escape this particular category. But that's something that you could do. You could research which categories each of these are in and block that. We're not going to do that. We're just going to say any because we're already talking about blocking Dropbox, so that's good enough. And actions, obviously, we want to deny. Now, real quick here, we can, it stands to talk about real fast that you can log session at start and session at end, having to do with somebody trying to access Dropbox, and then, obviously you can forward the logs wherever you want, or you can just look at them on the actual Palo Alto. And then you could schedule it to where it only blocks it during certain times. But for the purposes of our discussion here, we want to block Dropbox, bar none, across the board, period. And we just don't want to allow it. So that's what this does, and deny. So we allow that, or excuse me, click OK there. And we see that it's the number 2 rule, effectively the number 1 rule, actually. So as soon as somebody hits that, it gets blocked. If we want to, we can add, say our marketing team, for instance, we want them to be able to use Dropbox for purpose of research or whatever. We want them to be able to check it out so that they can have talking points, to be able to have intelligent conversations with our partners. We can allow Dropbox. We would say, for instance, we could pick a trust zone, or for specific source addresses, which in this case, I believe we have added marketing. So we've picked marketing 1, which if you can see over here on the left, it's kind of grayed out. I'll show it to you. But we specified previously marketing address group. So we specified an address group for marketing 1. So anything from that IP address range, we're going to allow. Again, we're doing any for the users. And destination, we're going to add Untrust. Applications. This is much the same. It's just allowing, obviously. And where it's effective is now we're going to say application default. So this way, if somebody in that address group were to try to use Dropbox and it were altered and goofy somehow, then it would not allow it. We're only going to allow the application default. We're not going to allow it to act in any way that it's not designed to do. And we're going to allow. Same thing applies for log settings. Now we want to make sure that the allow is below, excuse me, we're going to make sure it's above. My fault. So now we're saying allow Dropbox to block Dropbox. So if somebody from within that marketing group tries to use Dropbox, they're going to be allowed. If this rule does not apply to you, if you're not in the marketing group, in other words, then it goes and it's blocked. So in that way, we can allow specific people to use it, other people to be blocked. Now, one last thing I want to show here is that, and I'm going to spell this wrong, and I apologize. So we're going to say, again, source any, source address any, user any, destination. We want to put the destination as Untrust, which is external. Application we're going to leave alone. We want to block anonymizers. So proxy avoidance and anonymizers. So the reason why you'd want to block these is because somebody could use an anonymizer to go out and basically route themselves around your traffic via another port somehow. And this way, we're making sure that people are going through the proper ports, through our interface, or through our infrastructure the way it's supposed to be, and they're not circumventing anything, and that would cause them to absolutely not be able to anonymize themselves. That way, we're sure that they are made to not be able to use Dropbox. After all this, most firewalls up here, I can see my mouse, we want to click commit. Because if we don't click commit, then none of these rules make any sense. It won't actually commit them to memory, and if the thing reboots, then all your stuff has been lost. That's just kind of a tech note. So we would go ahead and do that. And that really, I know it's kind of quick and dirty and just goes over one little piece of what we would do to block Dropbox specifically, but you can take this particular bit of information, you can use it on any XEs or any of the programs that you want to block. So that is that.
Awesome. Okay, I'll switch back to my screen, and we can finish up here. All right. So Ryan, thanks for giving that demo. The one thing I want to mention is that Ryan has now gone over sort of this multifaceted way or multiple ways that you can really block Dropbox. And some of these are very rudimentary, and the reality is that the best solution is actually what we tell our partners is the best solution is not necessarily to block Dropbox. The best solution is to present your clients with a secure business-grade alternative. And the reason we say this is because there is no doubt that file sync as a solution makes people more productive. It makes employees happier, and it's just generally good for business. People being able to access files from anywhere, from any device, being able to share content, whether it's internally or externally, is a huge benefit to any small or large business today. So what we tell our partners is introduce a business-grade alternative to Dropbox, and that business-grade alternative is Anchor. Anchor is a product line that eFolder supplies on a wholesale basis to partners, and Anchor, the premise of Anchor is very similar to Dropbox. You can sync content across any device. You can share content with anyone. You can sync any type of content. But the big difference is that you will never compromise security and control. Everything about Anchor is designed to be managed by a partner. You have high levels of visibility and control and security. Security functionality that's available not only to you, but also to your clients and the end users that you're managing. So when I mention, expiration dates and credentialed access and notifications on download, all of those features are available to end users by using Anchor. As a partner, what you'll experience is a multi-tenant interface where you're actually able to see how people are interacting with content, where content is being synced to. You'll be able to perform remote wipes on certain devices. You'll be able to set policies such as excluding certain file types. So if you want to exclude MP3s, for example, or video files, you're able to do that. You're able to, and then you're able to deliver a solution that is will feel very much like Dropbox. It's just as easy, just as intuitive, and will really enable your clients to be more productive. So then confronting the Dropbox problem is not necessarily about blocking Dropbox. That's certainly a step that you can take or a measure that you can take, but it's really about introducing a business-grade solution that allows your clients to access files from anywhere, collaborate with ease both internally and externally, share files securely, unlocking some of the security features, controlling business data, so having visibility into how files are being shared, edited, modified, moved around, and then eliminating FTP and VPN. One of the, by choosing a business-grade solution, you unlock functionality that consumer-grade solutions simply don't have. And for example, Anchor is a solution that provides file server enablement. Hopefully some of you on the call have heard of this feature. What it allows partners to do is to actually sync their clients' file servers to a team share, to a collaborative space, so that their clients no longer have to deal with cumbersome FTP and VPN protocols, but they can just access the folder as a synced folder. They can make edits to files as if they were on their local desktop, and all of those edits and changes will actually be synced back to the file server. So this is a flagship feature of Anchor. It's really something that you'll only find in a business-grade solution. So one of the things that we help partners do is start this conversation with their clients. At eFolder, we're all about enabling partners. We're a 100% channel-focused company. And so we actually provide playbooks, which are canned marketing materials. We have a playbook that's called the Dropbox Problem Playbook. And this playbook is all around the risks that your clients assume by having consumer-grade Dropbox in the workplace. So in this playbook, we provide you with competitive sheets, so actually a feature-by-feature comparison between Anchor and Dropbox. We provide you with emails that you can send your clients. We provide you with white papers, an ebook, a pitch deck even to talk about the dangers of Dropbox. And we also provide you with really cool stuff like an event planning guide. So if you want to host your own lunch and learn on this topic and talk about the Dropbox problem, we provide you with a planning guide and the actual content that you can present at that event. So a ton of partner enablement tools that are inside of this playbook that you can use to start this conversation with your client and get them onto a business-grade solution. Just quickly, I want to talk about pricing and packaging, how it works with Anchor. So when you start to deploy Anchor to your clients, eFolder sells Anchor on a wholesale basis, as I mentioned before. The average cost of Anchor is $5 to $7 per user. So we do volume pricing. The more licenses that you purchase, the more that your price will actually go down. And what we're seeing is that partners are able to mark up this solution 2x or 3x the price that they're paying. So most eFolder partners today are charging anywhere between $50 and $25 per user. The logic here is that a solution that's comparable, if we were to take Box as an example, is the market price for a solution like Box today is anywhere from $20 to $35. $20 is their lowest end service. It's not going to be feature rich. Anchor is a feature rich business grade product. And on top of that, as a partner, you are providing the help desk. You are conducting the adds, moves, and changes. You're providing the support for the solution. And that's really, you're providing an invaluable service in that respect. And so $50 and $25 is a very competitive rate that we're seeing partners charge today. It's very feasible, and it's what we think is a very fair value and what we're seeing our partners doing on a daily basis. You know, flexibility and support. By partnering with a channel-focused company, some of the things that you'll unlock: month-to-month payments, so there's no long-term contract. We have support and maintenance. Our entire support department is 24/7. We are based in the United States, and so you'll have a very responsive support team to help you with your deployments and get you going, and also to support you as you start to deploy this with clients. A dedicated eFolder account manager. So if you ever have any questions about your accounts or other eFolder products or about Anchor itself, you have a dedicated account manager who you can always call on. And then sales, marketing, and technical training. You know, the Dropbox problem playbook is just one of 3 different playbooks that we actually have out. So we'll always support you. If you're successful as a company, we're going to be more successful. So making sure that you're deploying this successfully and achieving the profit margins that you want to achieve. On that note, I do want to offer a free trial to anybody on the call today. Please visit anchorworks.com/download if you're interested. Anchor is available as both a SaaS or private cloud version, so you can take advantage of that as well. So let's jump in and see if there are any final questions. All right. So Michael is asking, what do you mean by perform remote wipes on certain devices? So one of the features that's not available to you, one of the features that's not available in a solution like Dropbox or any consumer-grade service is that if an employee is syncing files, sensitive corporate files, their personal folder, their personal Dropbox folder, let's say, and that person leaves the company or they lose their device, you will not be able to throw a remote brick at that device and say, I want to wipe that device of any corporate files, because all of those files will be in their personal folder. So remote wipes is actually very important anytime you're in a work environment, anytime you have people who are collaborating on different files, and you want to have control over those files and prevent data leakage. So what we mean by remote wipes is with Anchor, you can actually wipe a specific device. You can say, I want to wipe, you know, John Doe's laptop, or I want to wipe John Doe's cell phone, or you can wipe all of the devices associated with John Doe if that person has left the company. So a lot of use cases for performing remote wipes, and that's all unlocked by a business-grade product like Anchor. All right. See if there are any other questions in the queue. We do have a few more minutes, so please take this time to ask any questions that you have. Okay. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions come through, so we'll go ahead and we are going to go ahead and finish up. I want to thank everybody who joined us for today's webinar. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us also.
Thank you, Carlo. I appreciate it.
And please visit www.efolder.net if you'd like to take a look at our solutions, or you can visit anchorworks.com/download if you would like to unlock that 21-day trial of Anchor. Again, thank you to all of the attendees of today's webinar. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.